Welcome to Software Sales Simplified, Move to Success, your weekly podcast for the latest and greatest in software sales insights and how to become a better seller. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just getting started, please make our podcast your one-stop shop for the latest and greatest. My name is Kevin Donville. I have over 30 years experience in software sales and consulting and implementation, as does my co-host and good friend, Matt Long. Matt, how are you doing here today?
I'm doing fantastic today. Really looking forward to this session.
As am I. We've been sales leaders multiple times over, implementation leaders and so forth. And hiring and recruiting of people has always been a challenge. And in some markets more than others, right?
Yeah, for sure. And then especially now, I've not been looking for a job the past year and a half, but what I see on LinkedIn is it's just totally insane at the moment. And I want to dig into what's actually going on from a professional in this space. But that's why I'm really looking forward to this, to find out what is actually going on with all the AI bots and the AI responses. And is it just machines hiring machines at this point?
There is a lot of moving parts going on in the marketplace right now. And to help us make sense of that, we have brought on, as you correctly identified, a real expert in the industry with respect to hiring, recruiting, and all things related to that. Robyn Gilmartin. Robyn, how are you?
I'm good, guys. It's been a minute.
It's been a
Been a
minute.
minute.
And both Matt and I have had many conversations with you, both personal and professional, over the course of our
Yeah.
careers. You've been
Yeah.
a very welcome partner in our success and our ability to be able to do our jobs properly. But we know you. We are very familiar with your background, your capabilities, and your expertise. But the folks listening to our podcast today probably aren't. So if you would be so kind,
Yeah.
take a minute,
Sure.
and tell everybody who you
Well,
are.
thanks for having me. Like I said, it's been a minute. It's really nice to see you guys. So I've been in recruiting, I usually say, for longer than I care to share or remember. I've seen the ups, the downs, and the sideways. I started my recruiting career. We'll start it with that on the outside, as I'm doing now, in contingent recruiting. From there, I got recruited to be in sales, actually. So I've run a sales desk. I sat as an individual contributor. I ended up running the team until they got acquired. My favorite boss on earth, who you are both very familiar with, then recruited me over to be his internal recruiter for a company that was pretty small, didn't have recruiting at the time. So I had to, set up all the processes, the procedures, we were working with, 75,000 outside recruiters at the time. So I did the internal thing. They got acquired and I said, that's it. Third time's a charm. So about 12, 13, 14 years ago, I decided to go out on my own. It's a boutique little business. I've always worked software SaaS companies, mostly go to market. So I would call that sales, marketing, customer success, account management, sort of anything that's client facing. I can do folks like you guys, like the SEs who can speak my lingo, but probably not the engineering side. I don't understand the questions and never mind the answers. So I try and stick to what I know. But yeah, thanks again for having me. It's going to be a blast.
Well, your perspective, by having been someone who actually sat in the chair and had to do the job that you're recruiting for
Mhm.
and the positions you're trying to fill,
Yeah.
that gives you a unique perspective from that. And, you've talked about having 30 years experience in a mixture of those different roles.
Yeah.
As we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast today, it seems almost like the world has come unhinged with respect to recruiting and jobs and hiring and firings and the layoffs.
Yeah.
What are some of the most prevalent trends you're seeing with respect to hiring and recruiting in 2025?
Yeah.
And what does that mean for next year? Because we're getting near the end of 2025, so we got a pretty
Yeah.
good read on that. But what's
Yeah.
coming next year, do you think?
Yeah. So, it's been an interesting road, guys, right? Like the past couple of years, we went from all of these massive layoffs from every software company under the sun.
Mm,
We came back from that and people were kind of, from my perspective, just trying to hang on to their current accounts and current clients, not really selling much net new. In the midst
mm,
of that, here come these two pretty letters called AI, right? So if you have AI in your name, you might get some VC funding. If you don't, forget it. You're not getting it. There have been hardly any IPOs. And so the fallout from that, from a recruiting perspective, and, Kevin and you and I have chatted about this, interview cycles really follow sales cycles.
right.
And so I'm talking to the sales guys on feet in the street and they're running into the same issues where Everyone's trying to do more with less. If you don't have a rock solid ROI, the CFO ain't buying it, right?
Yeah.
And it's all these need to have technologies. So when it falls into recruiting, you know, I would tell you the AI's out there. People are using bots. They're trying to screen resumes. Is it effective? Maybe, right? I think we can narrow down the playing field. We can start to not spend so much man hours trying to find the right people. But when it comes to real recruiting, it's not about keywords. It's not about what's on the resume. It's not about probably even the company you've been at.
Mm.
It's really personal. It's figuring out who is that person? What are they good at? Why are they bigger, better, faster, different than the other 1,000 resumes sitting on the desk? Right. So I think people are still trying to do more with less. They're trying
Mm.
to figure out where this is going to fit in. They're trying to handle it. I think a number of companies from an internal perspective, it's taking longer. People are looking for purple squirrels, as I lovingly like to call them, and I think it's going to continue until we can figure out, this train that's really coming down the track.
Yeah, you mentioned the looking for purple squirrels. I've often used the phrase unicorn. I mean, you're basically trying to find a needle in a haystack. Take whatever
Yeah.
analogy you want.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the job requests that are coming out. Matt and I get pinged every once in a while with someone who's either looking for a new role or is
Mhm.
looking to fill one.
Mhm.
And when they tell me what they're looking for, I'm like, if I find that person, I will hire them. I'm not going
Right.
to. But they're asking, as you've identified, they're asking for these really high bar setted levels and expectations with respect to background, capabilities, and experience
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
performance, right? And
Mhm.
a proven track record.
Right.
Then they turn around, and when you send them someone like that,
Yeah.
you're hearing from several people, and some have even been on the show. The hiring cycles are ridiculously
Insane.
long, like months and months
Yeah.
long with
Yeah.
repeated. What do you think is driving this need to do that? And why
Yeah.
is it so different from what it used to be, say, even 5 years ago, 10
Yeah.
years?
So I would tell you pre-COVID, maybe let's call it
Mm,
5, 10 years ago, it was a much more candidate driven market. I
mm,
mean, the hiring budgets were out there, the money was flowing, the IPOs, the VC money, there was money and people were hiring and there
right.
wasn't this thing called AI, right? There were, in my opinion, far less technologies. So
Mm,
it wasn't quite as competitive from a selling perspective. Hey, listen, like I said, I've been in this longer than I care to share or remember, right? So you've got client driven markets, which this in my mind is, and you've got candidate driven markets. And five,
mm,
10 years ago, it was a candidate driven market. And if you didn't make an offer, they're gone. I'd
right.
have people sitting 3, 5 offers within 2 weeks. Like, no kidding. You'd call me today. I just started looking. What do you have for me? And within 2 weeks, you've got 5 offers. I mean, that's crazy, right? So we are completely on the other end of that spectrum and pendulum. There aren't as many jobs. There aren't as
Mm,
many hiring. There aren't as many, you know, really openings at the end of the day. So clients now feel like, well, there's a ton of talent. I don't have to rush because the next person's coming down the road.
mhm,
But what they don't realize is that unicorn, as you like to call it, isn't always out there, right? So I'm
exactly.
getting requests of, I need this much experience, this much quota. You can't have jumped around 1 year, 1 year, 2 year, 1 year, forget it. I'm not going to hire that, which a lot of people have in this market, right? I mean, with layoffs and startups, there's always good reasons for it. Some VPs won't even look at it. And then beyond that, they find the person and they put them through, to your point, months and months of interviews. Why? They're looking
Yeah.
for reasons to say no rather than yes. They think there's something better. I've always related recruiting to real estate, right? So if you
Mm,
see a house and it looks pretty perfect, are you going to look for another house or are you going to buy it?
yeah, exactly.
I'm just curious how much of these, like not inappropriate, but sorry, I can't think of the word right now to
That's
cut
okay.
this point.
Bring it.
How many of the job listings are
Yeah.
created by AI? And so they're
Yeah.
just saying, give me the best fit for this thing. What are all the traits that they'd have? And they just put
Right.
that out there. I'm wondering if
Yes.
that is getting very unrealistic. That's what I was looking for. Unrealistic.
Yeah.
Um,
So, I've heard different things. So I don't post jobs. It's just not how I recruit, right? When I
mhm,
was internal with you guys, I did it was more of a marketing exercise, right?
Mm,
Like, hey, here's this great company. We're growing, we're recruiting. I personally don't because I'm a sort of point and shoot recruiter. Like, you're going to give me that purple squirrel list of requirements and I'm going to go find those requirements. And I hope to send you 3 or 5 candidates and not 100 or even 20, right? I do hear there's a lot of posts out there. They're getting hundreds of resumes within an hour. And then 3 months later, they get posted again. Like, did you not find the right person in the 100? Is it a real job? Did someone forget to click the button in the ATS, which is basically CRM for recruiting, right? It's an applicant tracking system. Did they forget to close the job, right? So the requirements are through the roof. The jobs, sometimes they're real, sometimes they're not. I just heard this horror story from a buddy of mine of a retired, very successful CRO. His son's now in the market. Got a call from a recruiter, set up a call. She wouldn't tell him what the company was, what the job was, what the comp was. Just get in the phone. He picks up the phone and it's the VP. And he's like, hi, nice to meet you. I don't even know what company I'm recruiting for or interviewing with. Like,
Yeah.
what? What has happened?
How does the candidate properly present themselves?
He can't.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm hearing stuff like that a lot.
Yeah.
So my question, and to kind of back up on Matt's question,
Yeah.
is this because everybody is just shoving it over to AI, let AI take care of this, internally writing the pros for the job description, doing the filtering, and no one's applying logic as much anymore, or doing a little bit of elbow grease involved?
I think it's a little bit of both, right? I mean, I think you've got a lot of recruiters who are now doing a lot of internal work and they work really hard. But when you've got thousands of resumes in front of you, it's impossible to look at all of them, right? So if I throw AI at it, maybe it'll narrow some down for me. Maybe it'll find the keywords I'm looking for. Maybe it'll float some to the top. How good is it? I mean, again, I don't recruit with AI. I mean, I might look for profiles with AI, but the number of people that I've looked at a resume, I'm like, I'm not really sure if this is going to be a right fit. And I get them on the phone. I'm like, oh my God, this person's a rock star.
Right.
So what people now need to remember is the piece of paper gets you in the door, right? And that piece of paper, to your point about AI, might need the right keywords. It might need the right phrase. It might need the exact right thing. But when you get on the phone, make sure you've got your stories, make sure you've got your ROIs, make sure, just like a sales cycle, you're looking at someone, why my software is better than the others. If you're in sales or really anywhere, you better be able to tell people why you're better than the others.
Yeah, I'm just curious from a applicant standpoint, because they're getting thousands of resumes. I don't even know if all these resumes are even real people, right? I don't know if they're just being sent out for one, but how do you even, I know the resume gets you in the door, but how do you stand out in this cluttered thing? I mean, there's keywords and other stuff, but what recommendations do you have to just get that call back or get noticed out of that pile?
Yeah,
I mean, it's an interesting question, Matt, and it's a really great one. I think, you can talk to 25 different VPs and you're going to get 25 different answers. And that's the problem with recruiting, right? My personal opinion on a piece of paper needs to look ROI, especially in this market. So I talk to sales reps that say, I'm responsible for the New England territory and I sell security. Okay. I don't know that I really care, right? I get other resumes that say, I was the first person hired. I did the largest deal in company history. My quota's X, my attainment's Y. I stack ranked 2 out of 50. I did the largest deal. I have the biggest clients. Which one do you guys want to hire?
Yeah.
Which one are you calling first, right? Yeah. There are also resumes or people, when I get them on the phone, who say, I made 70% of my quota. And I'm like, okay, which is pretty common right now, right? But what they forget, and then the next question is, how many reps in your team? 50. Where do you stack rank? 2. I'm like, okay, guys, stack ranking 2 out of 50 is very different than 70%.
Right.
So the number of resumes I get that are all words and no numbers, or, just attainment, doesn't give me much. It doesn't give me, is it a benchmark of a $400,000 quota or a $2 million? I just think you've got to tell the story as much as you can, as brief as possible. The other, if I can add on to that, instead of responsible for, initiated, created, developed. Very different.
Words rather than passive words, right?
Yeah. And show me where you've made a difference.
Talking about outcome and impact rather than just talking about roles and responsibilities.
And it
makes perfect sense.
It doesn't have to be sales. I mean, you could talk about that anywhere. You could talk about saving costs, increasing revenue, decreasing the time in your process, creating a playbook that equaled X number of leads or deals or whatever. There's always ROI. You got to look at what are the KPIs for your job? How are you being measured? And how do you put that in a piece of paper without making it 5 pages? Because I'm not going to read 5 pages.
I really appreciate everything you're bringing up about some of the limitations of AI. Not that AI is not a great thing. There's a lot of great things about AI,
Yeah.
but there are some places where the human experience, especially someone who's got years of experience, can go beyond that.
Sure.
So why should a person consider engaging a recruiter such as yourself
Yeah.
rather than relying on those AI tools? What do they get beyond the AI experience?
I mean, AI is still an infant, right? And sure, it does a lot. I don't know if we know what it does yet. We don't know how accurate it is yet. I mean, I think a lot of it is, and it's getting better every day. Got it. But when you're talking about recruiting someone, you're not asking them which keywords are on their resume. You're not asking them which keywords might fit to their experience. I really need to get to know you and your experience. One is a matchmaker, right? So let's go the other way around. One is skills-based. Can you sell? Can you get in? Can you drive? Can you sell? Can you multi-thread? Can you, whatever the case is, to get me through that whole sales cycle, right? And the other part is matchmaking. So do you fit in the culture? Are you like me and going to hit him between the eyes? Or are you a little more soft-spoken, right? Very different. And I talk to CROs like this all the time. Those of us in the Northeast are pretty like, hit me between the eyes. Here's where I'm at. Like it or don't. Take it or leave it. Right? Some in the Southwest, that New York rep probably ain't going to sell in Texas, and the Texas rep ain't going to sell in New York. So there are many more nuances to recruiting than keywords. Beyond that, you need to know the questions to ask. You can't just, did you make your quota? Yes. Great. Okay. So how'd you do it?
Right.
And does AI understand that? Do, bots understand that? Maybe. Do they know the next question to ask? I'm not convinced. And let's remember, this is a buying session and a selling session.
And how
So
do you get to the rest of the story, right? I mean,
even if the AI says, this is my person because they know how to get in, they know how to multi-thread, they know how to run a sales cycle, are they sold on you? Why do they want to come work for you? So, I think you and I chatted the other day about a post that I said, interviews are buying and selling. And someone came back at me like, they're not selling. I'm like, yes, they are. Of course they
you
are.
absolutely are. You absolutely are.
Right? You
Yeah.
have to tell me why I want to work for your company. If that's not selling, I don't know what is. And I don't want to hear about beers on Fridays. Right? So I want to be able to look at someone and say, hey, I've worked with this VP for 20 years. He's phenomenal. He's fair. He's a wingman. He'll stick up for you. He'll strategize with you. He'll get in the trenches with you. That's selling. Right?
Absolutely. No. I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, people are always asking me, hey, can you introduce me to somebody? Here's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I'm in the market. Here's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And then when I write, for example, a letter of introduction, and I know I've sent you a few, I talk about the elements that are important to both people.
Sure.
Because and in many cases, we're talking about an intangible, something that's not quantifiable. It's a very qualitative thing we're talking about. But to the point you brought up earlier on, when you were talking about some of the things you found out with the people that you would be interviewing, there's a whole other story that wasn't in the resume.
That's
that didn't show, that is so relevant to whether or not that person is the right candidate or not.
Yeah.
And if you're just using an automated tool and not relying on your expertise and your experience as a hiring body, or as a person who's trying to represent what you can deliver, you may be selling yourself short.
Well, and it's been interesting. You said at the very beginning, I was a head of sales and I ran a team and I was in a seat. I know how to sell and I sold technology. I know what I'm looking for, right? And I can work with my executives to say, maybe that'll work or maybe it won't. Have you thought about this, right?
Right.
When we talk about that ideal pie in the sky, sure, that'll work, but where can you flex? Do you have to have every single one of those?
It's
And so
interesting
if
you bring that up, though, because
Yeah.
we worked with some of the same people.
Yeah, sure.
And whenever I would interview one of their sales candidate, the first question they would ask me is, did they close you? So it absolutely is a selling activity.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. Same process.
Is a lot of hiring done strictly remote now, and the office visits and coming in is less and less, or is that still a key component for some of these companies that are really
Yeah,
intent on
it's
hiring
a great
someone?
question. So I think it depends on the role, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I think when it comes to real corporate roles, those are going to be in office. You want those team meetings.
Right.
Sales, sometimes it depends on the level, right? So if we've got some junior reps who are still learning, need to be mentored, more and more of those are moving in office or hopefully closer or in an office. Might not be in office 100% of the time. It might be hybrid. The Series A companies love to have people face to face. But as you move up the ranks and up the tracks, when you're talking to folks like us, who've been
Mm.
around for a little bit, right? Hopefully you've got some trust and, there's going to be a quarterly meeting or an offsite or whatever. Those enterprise reps are primarily still remote.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I'm curious then. So if that's the way that things are trending right now, and yet everybody seems to be, as we were just discussing a moment ago, kind of really leaning into the AI tools,
Mhm.
is it possible then? Well, I think it is based on what you were just saying, that people are giving themselves a disservice. They're not surfacing up the things that they're trying to find in these candidates. Is there a lot of mismatching going on? Is that what's causing so many delays and so much over reliance and on these tools rather than just picking up a phone and talking to somebody?
Potentially, right? And again, hey guys, when you've got 1,000 resumes and they were say, I'm responsible for the New England territory, I can't talk to 1,000 people, right?
Right. Right.
So there's some of that. There's some of if it's an in-office requirement and, Matt lives in Hawaii and I'm in Boston, I just don't have time. Now, if you somewhere in your either resume or cover letter, which I don't use anymore, whatever it's going to be, say, hey, I am moving to Boston on this day, that might perk my ears more than I live in Hawaii, right? But the mismatch, it's tough because AI to me is still new. Are we looking at keywords or are we looking at results? Does it know how to do that? Does it know how to interpret the results? Right. So even as a very old recruiter, I had a candidate not that long ago who sent me her resume and I said, hey, thanks. My VP, my CRO is looking for very specific things. I'll keep you in mind and hopefully our paths will cross again. She very kindly wrote back to me and said, can I please have 5 minutes? Here's what I can give you. Here's what I add to the table. Within 5 minutes, I was like, she's my hire.
Mm.
Right. So sometimes you catch someone on the right time. It's no joke, right? It's tough to stand out in this market when you do have applicants and there are thousands of them. Again, I'm not an applicant person because when I'm hired, I'm doing more outbound than inbound. And my outbound is primarily still on LinkedIn. So if your LinkedIn profile, I had this profile 2 weeks ago, a month ago, senior account manager. Well, that to me sounds like a farmer, right?
Hmm.
And so I had a job for this guy. It had gotten filled. He called me a month later and said, hey, I'd love to talk to you. I'm like, that job's been filled. All I have is net new. He's like, I'm all net new. I'm like, well, your title's senior account manager.
Right. Right.
And he had been at the company long enough that he didn't know that was a farmer role. So, in this market, I would also say, have your LinkedIn profile look like your resume. And again, add the numbers.
Yeah. So I guess then what to take away from this, if you're an applicant and you know that these AI tools are out there, you'd better make darn sure that the terminology you're using and the way you've categorized and laid out your resume then really highlights the true nature of your skill set. So there's
Yeah,
this on the hiree as well. It's not just the big bad AI tools are being used by the companies and that's confusing things.
sure.
It's there.
Yeah,
So, what other advice might you give to somebody
yeah,
who's looking in the industry right now, knowing that they're up against these waves of people coming in and trying to get to these
yeah.
jobs? What else might they try and do?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now it's all about relationships as it normally is, right? If one of you guys called me, I've known you for a long time, right? I already know your skills, I already know your style, I already know what you can do. I've had a lot of sales folks that I say, call your clients,
Mm,
call your big clients. What other softwares are they using? Right? What are they really like right now? What's the ROI model? So right now it's a big networking exercise. It's getting out, it's meeting people. Again, guys, interview cycles are sales cycles. So when
Right.
you're trying to get in touch with a prospect, what do? You're not sending me your PowerPoint deck, right? I
Right.
mean, I'm not just going to stick my resume in an inbox because, like we've talked about, there are hundreds of thousands. It's hard to stand out. Even if you have the perfect looking resume with all the numbers, sometimes it's still hard to find. You've got to imagine these recruiters are looking through thousands, right? And even if the AI tool picks up the keywords, if you didn't have the right one, maybe it's not coming through. Or you've got a recruiter that occasionally they're a bit more junior in their career. They're still learning. Their VPs or hiring managers have said, go look for someone with these skills and these keywords. And God forbid you don't have those exact words in your resume, you're not going to get chosen. So it's networking, it's reaching out, it's everything that you would do in sales. Do your research, find the buyers, right? The
Mm.
champions, and start developing relationships with them.
So you're still selling, but you're the product now.
Yes, sir.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's
I've
Interesting.
always
exactly it. I say
subscribed
that a
to
lot.
that as well as,
I
your
say that a
network
lot.
is your best option for getting hired.
Yes.
Who you know and
Yes.
who you've worked with in the past. I mean, that's always
Yeah.
the big
Yeah.
question mark, right? When you're bringing
Yeah.
someone high level onto the team in sales, so much of the stuff is made up. You really don't know what they're like. And so there's trust in already having that relationship with someone
Yes.
for sure.
Yes. And
And then the
networks
resume,
extend.
what's that?
I was sorry, networks extend, right? It
Yeah.
goes beyond the people that you know. Maybe they know someone who knows someone, right? They know a VC, they know someone.
Right. And then you have your resume on hot standby. And I mean, would you even suggest, I mean, this is what I would do is I would customize that resume before I send it to them specifically for that job. I mean, not so blatantly that it aligns up, but like know what the requirements are. And then you send it as the proof point because someone's going to validate that. Right. But
For
the
sure.
trust is already there to get you in the door.
Yeah. And to be honest, Matt, I try not to have people have to customize their resume for every single job they're applying to. When it comes down for me, again, I want to know your quota, attainment, deal size, clients, where'd you stack rank, what kind of deals are you doing? That's going to tell me pretty much everything I need to know. And if you're someone who's made their quota year after year, quarter after quarter, you're stack ranking at the top of your echelon there, again, this is purely sales, right? Then you don't really need to customize it. Now, if you are at a Series A company and no one knows what your company does, you might need a little blurb versus saying, I work for IBM, right?
Mm.
But it's really applicable anywhere, whether you're in marketing or tech support. What are the KPIs? How are you being measured in your job? Put that on a piece of paper. That's what stands out.
Clear metrics, right? Clear metrics about success. Just to your point, building your business case, just like you would when you're selling your software, but now you're the product. So you got to build the business case for the person you're speaking with, right?
That's right. That's right.
You brought up something a moment ago, and I want to kind of go back and touch on it again. Talking about standing out, and I'm with you about the whole thing about trying to customize every single resume that you send out.
Mhm.
It in this particular
can't.
market, I think it'd be impossible to do
Right.
that for every single one. But I have seen folks taking advantage of platforms like LinkedIn to
Mhm.
go and promote their successes, their contributions, taking advantage of some of those additional element things. Like you said, I'm not going to go and put up a PowerPoint, but some do around there where they're presenting themselves as the product, or
Yeah.
they're talking about their success history.
Right.
Have you seen that be a good strategy? And what advice might you give to somebody around that?
You mean on their profile?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Listen, that's where I spend a good chunk of my day. So if your profile, Kevin, says I'm a senior account executive at
Mhm.
XYZ company with no detail, and Matt says, hey, I'm a senior strategic account executive. I've been here for 5 years. Here's my quota attainment, deal size. All the things that we've talked about makes my job a little easier, right? So
Yeah,
to your
absolutely.
point, yes, you are now selling yourself. And so you guys know how to demo software. You know what to show, what not to show, where the bugs are, what's going to work and what's not. It's the same thing, right? So I also have a lot of reps who say, I don't want to sound cocky. Like, what's cocky? If you're stack ranking number 1 or 2 out of 50 time and time and time again, that's a fact. That's
Mm-hmm.
not like, well, I'm the best thing since sliced bread. That's just, I work my tail. I know what I'm doing. And you need to go show that to someone. How do you do it? I often ask people, what's your secret sauce? How do you get in? And if someone says, I send a bunch of emails, I'm like, really? Like, okay. But if I give you some unknown Series A company you need to go evangelize, tell me how you're going to get in. I need more than emails. Right? So to your point, the LinkedIn, the resume, whatever it is the piece of paper that's going to get you in the door. Hopefully, right? Once you're in the door, now you need the stories. And our old favorite friend, our VP of product, used to tell us, I don't want to know how you could, would, should do something. I want to know how you've done it. And I've plagiarized that ever since the day he told me, probably 25 years ago. Right? I mean, he was the one that said, I have so many product people walk through this door that tell me how they could do something. So I could walk you through how I would run a deal cycle, but how different is it if you say, here's what I did, here's how I broke in, here's how I multi-threaded, and pick a specific deal. You can work through the details. Guys, the process is the same. The interview process and the sales process are exactly the same. So you're going to show a client how they're going to use your product, what the ROI is. You're going to show a company what you can do and what the ROI is.
Yeah, question also around, if I were looking, I would also reach out to people like you, recruiters I've worked with in the past. That's one of my first things as well. It's like, hey, I'm on the market. Do you know of anything? How can you help me? I'm just curious because traditionally it's always been the employer pays the recruiter finder fee, right?
Yeah.
Has that even switched? Do even applicants now pay it all, or is that we've not breached that area yet?
I mean, for me, it hasn't. I've seen a lot of career consulting, a lot of resume work, there's a lot of money out there. Is it worth it? For me, it's not, right? But that's something to be really cautious about too, Matt, right? Because those clients are paying the fees, some recruiters, and I love my job, but this industry, some recruiters are going to say, I got the best job since sliced bread. And they know that people are nervous and they know they're a little desperate and they're going to try and throw some spaghetti against the wall and see if it'll stick.
Yeah.
You have to be really careful about knowing where your resume is, knowing who has it, knowing where it's going, the confidentiality of it, especially if you're still in a job, and making sure you value the people and you can trust them. There's some scary stories out there, unfortunately.
I'm sure there's a lot of them because it's become so hard to judge, what's genuine anymore. And I think AI certainly we've talked about this in other episodes. AI certainly has made that explode even further, right? And I've seen, I'm sure you've seen it as well, where like the interviewer is AI and the applicant is also AI.
Right?
It's just insane in my mind, but it's a natural progression, I think, of kind of where we've come, and hopefully it's going to start veering back somehow as we all figure this AI thing out.
Right. Yeah, it has to.
But that's why the who is so critical because they get, a real person is vouching for you as a real person with real abilities, and I think that's the highest praise and sense of trust you can get.
So again, whether it's the VCs, the execs you've worked with, the sales engineers, the marketing, people have huge networks.
Right.
Use them. You never know who knows who.
It's interesting. I'm hearing you talk about this, and 2 years ago, I found myself back and Matt, we both found ourselves back in the job market.
Yeah.
And an interesting thing we found, Matt was just mentioning about whether things are real or not. But there were jobs I was applying for where if you looked at my resume and you looked at the job description, it looked like you wrote it based on my job description, right?
Right.
And then I would send into those. I even had people inside that organization that could help escalate it or get it in front of the right people, and even talk to the people who ran those departments to try and, put a little bit of a spotlight on my resume.
Yeah.
Only to find out 2 months into the process that it was originally intended, they had to put it out to the real world, but there always was an expectation internally that they were going to hire an internal candidate.
Yeah.
How prevalent is that still in the marketplace right now, given the nature of the job market.
Yeah.
And are there any real segments of the industry that are getting a bit more of a boom than the other ones? And how do those two things factor together?
Yeah.
Is there still a lot of false leads because we're going to hire internal? And if not, is there a particular industry, if someone's looking for work, that they should be targeting?
Yeah. I mean, that's an infuriating process. So I'm sorry that you had to go through that. I can't say it doesn't happen, right?
Right,
I mean, uh, I'm pretty black and white. I've always joked, like, I'm from the Northeast, I'm from Boston, I'm going to tell you where it's at, right?
right.
So if I have a job, I can promise you it's open. The ones that we see on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
it depends where they come from, right? So it's hard for me to sort of speak specifically to that. Does it happen? 1,000%. Should it? 1,000% not, right?
Mm,
That should never happen. I mean, and it's unfortunate in this market that people are, in my opinion, being taken for granted. I mean, you're having these candidates run through loops. I just heard the other day there was a CEO who went through 8 months of interviews. 8 months.
wow.
And the guy looked at the board and said, "So you went through your IPO without me?" And they said, "Yep." I'm like, okay, so if you've talked to your CFO, your COO, and the board, the CRO,
Mm,
who else is there? And you're talking about somebody to run your company through an IPO. So now you can imagine if I'm hiring a sales rep, I'm talking to everyone under the sun, right? To back to your question, is it their internal? Sometimes there are. Sometimes maybe they have an earmark. Sometimes they say, well, let me check the market. Let me see if there's anyone else better than the person I have in mind.
mm.
There's so much that happens behind the scenes in recruiting. It's hard to give you a specific answer to that specific question. So, and there's probably 1,000 different answers to the same question, right? So, did they have someone? Maybe. Did they want to find someone better? Maybe. Did that person maybe give notice and then they convinced them to stay? Maybe,
Mm.
right? There's again 1,000 different answers of what could be going on there.
I have a question that's maybe a little of a touchy subject, but
Sure.
when I got laid off, a couple years ago, was like, okay, well, I can go try to get another job, but I'm
Yeah.
feeling that my age is a factor now.
Yeah.
And with age comes salary expectations and things like that from my 25
Mm-hmm.
plus years of experience. Right. But it's like, I really feel like I can get another job, but in a year, I might be on the chopping block again because
Yeah.
you start looking at the salaries. It's like, well, this guy's got to go. Right.
Yeah. Right.
So, I mean, how real is that? Because I know I've
Yeah.
talked to other people that have gone into, young startup companies and stuff. They're like,
Yeah.
that person just seems too old. Right. So
Yeah.
it's something legally, it's a little touchy area, but we know that it happens. And if
It
you
does.
are senior in your career, are there any bits of advice that you give to a person like that? I mean, obviously they're going to see you at some point and they know
Right.
if you are, they're going to see your history, but
Right.
any advice around that
Yeah,
or
it's a tough one,
thoughts?
Matt. Like you said, it's a legal question and it's
Yeah.
so far illegal, it's not even funny, but we can't touch that, right? So, the advice that I have is there's a lid for every pot. So for every job, there's a person. For every person, there's a job. And I've
Mm,
been saying that for forever and a day. I have all these little cliche sayings, right? So, is the Series A startup with a bunch of 25 and 30-year-olds like your spot? Maybe not, right? And they'll come up with every reason. You're too expensive. You got too much experience. You're over experienced for what I need. You'll
mm,
never hear it's because you're too old because they can't, right? But there are plenty of companies. Now, there may be some of the, let's call them more seasoned companies. Maybe they're larger. Maybe they have more jobs, more folks at that same level. Maybe they need someone more experienced. And I would argue, we all stayed in our careers. I've had fewer than 10 jobs in my number of years. And I'm now seeing, 5 jobs in 6 years.
yeah.
So if I'm the hiring company, I want someone with the staying power. I want someone that's going to stick around, who has the knowledge, who has the wherewithal, who has all of that. At the end of the day, the hiring manager is going to make the ultimate decision. But the advice I would give is you've just got to find the right spot, right? Like, don't fight the uphill battle. Even if you might be a perfect spot, you may not enjoy it there either, right? Culturally or whatever it's going to be, but there's always jobs out there. There's room for everybody. It's a little bit more challenging in this market.
Yeah, you're pointing out a few kind of like bad behaviors that can happen out there in
Mm-hmm.
the hiring market right now. And you made a posting a couple of days ago where you were talking
Uh-oh.
about a common, and no, I'm not going to call anybody out. I responded immediately as soon as I saw it because
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, I've
Yeah.
seen it a million times, right? It was the whole thing about when someone goes and does a great job in year one, they
Mm,
smash their OTE, they
Here it
overperform,
comes.
and then
Right?
year two comes around, and their
Yep.
reward for that is they double up the
Yep.
person's quota, shrink their territory, but keep their OTE at the
Yep.
same amount, which is basically
Yep.
like showing them the door without showing them the door. What other kinds of bad practices have you seen out there where it's
Oh,
like you
there's
have to
so
look at the
many.
person going, you're shoving people out the door.
But
That's your strategy,
yeah,
great, but
it's
what else?
interesting because they don't think it's shoving people out the door. They think they're saving their pockets,
Right.
right? And so you hear comments like, well, the sales rep can't make more than the CFO, the CEO, the CRO. Well, hey guys, if they're bringing you $3 million worth of business, do you care how much you pay them? Really? So they do. I've talked to some really phenomenal reps in the last, especially like 3 months. This is happening over and over and over. And they
Mm,
all tell me the same story. My OTE stays the same. My quota is going up year after year after year. And I just don't have the ability to make money anymore. They're asking me to bring in more for less. So, we talk about how to hire A players. Everyone wants the A players. Everyone wants to bring them in. But once you have them, to your point, don't send them out the back door. Right? So that practice seems to be a big one right now. And I do think there's a lot of eyes on finances. There's a lot of eyes on ROI. There's a lot of eyes so talk about software sales. When the three of us all worked in marketing applications, it was a big hot topic.
right.
Now the big hot topic is data and security.
Mhm.
There aren't as many marketing applications anymore. I mean, they're out there, but they're not doing a ton of hiring like they were, right? So when you've got something with an ROI, you've got something that's a need to have, and you've got a really good rep, don't let them go that easy. Don't push them out the door that easy. I mean, one of these guys had been there for 10 years. He's like, how much more can I do?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he's like, and I hit it every year, but I'm making the same money and working twice as hard with less accounts.
Well, the argument could be made now, being the guy I had to sit on the other side of the chair, sharing some of those quotas. So let me switch hats on you now. I
Sure.
had the white
Yeah.
one on. I'm throwing the black hat on now.
Bring
Okay.
it. Yeah.
So, but 10 years increasing his quota, but he still made it every single time. So how does a recruiter influence an organization in their policies with
Mm-hmm.
respect to stuff like quota and incentivizing that kind of performance
Yeah.
in a way that keeps the ball moving down the field, but doesn't disincentivize the top
Sure.
performers?
Well, and to your point, right? You've worked on the other side. So if I'm going to hit 1.2, can I make it 1.4? Probably. But if you're at 1.2 and all of a sudden it's 2 and the next year it's 3, those are the people I'm talking to.
Right.
So it's a far cry, right? So yes, can you push someone to do more? Sure. But if they're doing more, then give them the value for doing more, especially when a lot of reps aren't making their quota right now. And it's not necessarily their fault, right? When half the organization or 3/4 of the organization isn't, there's always been an 80-20 rule. It's leaned in more in the other direction right now.
Mhm.
Lots of reps making 70, 80, 90% of their number. That might not be bad. And again, let's circle way back. If you're stack ranked 2 out of 50, you're hitting for the fences, right? You're doing something right. Maybe the quota's overstated. So
Yeah, I
I know
think
we took that off track, but
No.
one thing that I've noticed over the 25 plus years that I've been in software sales
yeah,
was when we got into it, it seemed like it was a good living. I mean, you worked hard,
sure.
but you made a lot compared to everything else going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed, as I kept going forward in my career, it seemed like it got harder and harder to make that money. You're blowing out your numbers, got less and less. Of course, it varied from place to place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But towards the end, I was like, I'm working not twice as hard, but I'm working really hard and
Yeah,
I'm making less money now, especially with the cost of everything going up, where it just felt like it wasn't the same. It didn't have the same status that it once had in terms of if you're a
sure.
good seller and getting new customers, they rewarded you. And it now seems like
Mm-hmm.
that's not the case. Have you seen something similar to that?
I don't know. I think it's still out there, Matt. I think, if, again, you got to pick the right pony. You got to find the right company, the right application, the right TAM, the right ICP, the right da-da-da-da-da, right?
Mm-hmm.
I still think there's a lot of money to be made out there. I still know reps making tons of money. Is it hard? Yeah. If I'm going to date all three of us, we used to make a lot of money because we would have on-prem and you have a huge implementation and services fees. And you'd make a ton of money because they had to have it. Right. And then we went to what was first? Hosted, cloud, then SaaS. I mean, they're all the same thing, right? But all those fees went away. So how did I start to make money? And then in comes the SMB and the mid-market, and now I can do volume. And then those companies wanted to get to enterprise, but they couldn't quite scale. Well, now they're starting to scale, and they're able to scale. So the deal sizes have come back because we went through a real lull when things first started to turn down that track. The SaaS applications were 70, 80, or 100 grand, right?
Yeah.
And it took a lot of time to figure out and get used to the security behind it and all the stuff that you guys know far better than I do, right? But now we're past that turn. So now we're at the AI turn. So what can we do with AI? How far can we get with these applications? How much value can we add with these applications? So again, to circle way back, I think the money's still out there. I still know plenty of people doing 7-figure deals, ACV, never mind TCV, right? And they aren't huge companies. They don't have to be the Oracles and Salesforces to get to those deal sizes. They're out there. It's finding the right one for sure.
So in today's market, and we're going to have to start bringing this home here pretty soon, as much as I'm enjoying every minute of this. What advice would you give to somebody, a software company right now that needs to recruit?
Yep.
What advice would you give them so that they streamline the process to find the best client as quickly as possible?
Yeah, candidate. Yeah. So I'm going to turn the tables. You guys have interviewed before. And you've both hired before. So when you're hiring, what are you looking for? So my very first thing before I even take on a search, do you know what you're looking for? Because if you don't, I can't start. Right? And it doesn't mean that you can't switch or you can't ebb and flow, but you should have a pretty good idea what you want, what that person has done, where they've come from. And then I'm probably going to squeeze the brakes on you. Like, you have to have that, right? So if I find a superstar who can blow through walls, do they have to have a Rolodex? Do they have to know your industry? I'd rather have someone with the grit, drive, and determination than the Rolodex and industry experience. So it's these ebbs and flows. Where can you give? Where can you push? What's your ideal pie in the sky person? And where can you flex on that? So that's step one. Step two is when you start to see that person, don't put them through 25 interviews. Don't make it 4 months, right? People still want to be excited. And I've always said, no matter what the market, it's a buying session and a selling session. So yes, you need to buy. Yes, you need to make sure this person's for you 1,000%. You also need to tell them why they want to come work for you. Because worst case scenario, you say, that's not the person for me. And they go running around online, telling all their friends, I can't believe I didn't get this job. I really wanted to work there. It's free marketing, right? So move the process along, give them feedback. Please don't ghost. Please just be honest with people, right? People want honest answers. They don't mind that they got turned down as long as you tell them and you give them some good reason why so they can understand, right? So again, no matter what the market is, these processes right now have gotten out of control. A good recruiting process shouldn't really be more than 3, 4, 5 weeks at the most. Right? So you see a resume, you schedule an interview, you get back to them within 24 hours and next steps or a reason why you're not moving forward. If you do that 2 or 3 times, you get to a negotiation process, you make an offer, it's accepted, you have 2 more weeks to get someone out and in the door after their 2 weeks notice, it should be 5 or 6 weeks. And guys, it's September 24th. We're heading up to the end of the year.
Yeah.
Right? It was a long answer to your short question.
No, it's totally fine. Robyn, it's always interesting to get your perspective, and I always appreciate it because it really provides clarity. And, I've sat on both sides of the chair where I've been the person looking for a job and I've been looking for the right person. And
Sure.
every time you've been able to go and provide me with additional perspective that helps make either side of that equation a much
Oh,
easier
thanks,
and much
Kevin.
more. No, no, no. Trust me. Thank you because you've really helped me a number of times. If someone else is out there right now
Hmm.
and they're either on the hiring side or they're on
Hmm.
I need a job side,
Yeah.
and they wanted to reach out to you to explore partnering with you on either side of
Yeah.
the equation, what's the
Sure.
best way for them to reach out to you?
It's probably through my LinkedIn page, right? I mean, my email and phone number should be on there. So by all means, reach out through that. Robyn at forefrontsearch.com. I always say Robyn with a Y. It's RBYN at forefrontsearch.com. And mobile and everything should be on there as well. So yeah,
Fantastic. Well, we'll make sure we put it in the description so that
appreciate it.
anybody who's looking, and by the way, I can't recommend Robyn enough
Thanks,
to
guys.
help you on either side of the
Appreciate
equation
it.
from that perspective.
Yeah.
No, no, no. You've that's praise that you have definitely earned from
Thank you.
past engagements. So,
Yeah.
and I wholeheartedly endorse it. And anybody
Thank
who's
you.
looking, please reach out and look out for Robyn. But unfortunately, we are going to have to bring this episode to a close as much as I'm having good time chatting with my two friends here. Matt, it was wonderful talking with you today. Anything you'd like to go and share before we go and bring the episode to a close?
Just that it's just been a really fascinating conversation. I think these are things top of everyone's mind, whether you are currently looking or even at a job, these things you hear about. And so I really appreciate the candor and just the frank discussion around some of the things that are going on there. So thanks. Thanks again, Rob.
Thanks again for having me, guys. Really great to see you both.
Thank you for coming in. And one of the key things I'm taking away from this is that idea of before you even start writing up that job description, really get clarity in your own mind as the hirer. What is it you want? What is it
Yeah.
you really need in order to be successful
Yeah.
with the person you're bringing on? I think that's incredibly solid advice. But unfortunately, this does bring us to the close of our episode. We want to thank Robyn for coming in and spending time with us today and sharing her experience and her perspective. I learned a lot, and I'm sure you guys did too. We also want to thank you for coming in and spending time with us and listening to our podcast. Please come back again next week or go to our website where you can go and buy a copy of our book all about the methodology, the MOVE methodology, which has made Matt and I so successful in the past. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, until we see you next week, please like, follow, and subscribe. And we'll see you again next week. Take care.